Welcome to In Her Shoes. I'm Tiffany Dowling.
And I'm Lisa Ellen Kost, sitting in for Shelley Davis-Melock.
Well, well, well. Shelley Davis-Melock taking a day off. I'm not sure. What do you think? She's preparing for back to school?
I'm sure she's preparing for back to school.
You know how she likes to get her kids ready. So we're talking about back to school today. It's a shame she's not here to tell us about all of her, many, many things that she probably goes through. But I appreciate you being here, sitting in for her today.
Thank you for asking me.
So Lisa, tell people who do not know you a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
Well, I work for CBRE Martin, and I sell commercial real estate. And I help people find locations, either whether it's leasing an office or buying a building.
Nice.
Nice.
That gets you out of the office a little bit.
Gets me out of the office.
That's kind of nice. I like that. So do you have kids?
I have 5 children, and so we've done a lot of back-to-school shopping. I'm kind of an expert.
An expert, nice.
Yeah,
wow.
done a lot of
So were you the kind of mom that was kind of sad when summer was coming to an end and you were sending the kids off?
No, absolutely not. No. Couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier when they got back to school and things got more on a schedule. So
I have to agree. I think that it was the summer boredom that drove me crazy, really. I think that it was, I'm bored, I need something to do. Can you take me here? Can you do this for me? I mean, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, when does that school bell ring? I'm ready for it.
Right. There's a lot of, things you got to do to prepare for it.
There are.
But it is wonderful when it happens.
Yeah, and I always had this feeling. I always loved to go back to school. I loved school. So I was, the one with all the sharpened pencils. I had my backpack ready, 2 weeks in advance. All my clothes lined up for the first week.
There's nothing better than a beautiful new package of Sharpies. Oh, that was my big thing. If I had a new package of colored Sharpies, I was ready to go.
Sharpies, huh?
Sharpies.
All right.
Yeah, fine point. Only fine point.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I get it now. Yeah. All right. So we're going to be talking to Micaela Balzer from Impression 5. Did you ever take your kids?
I did. My kids grew up at Impression 5, and now I know it's hard to believe, but I have a granddaughter, and I took her about 3 months ago.
Oh, nice.
And it was absolutely fabulous. She loved the bubbles.
The bubbles, yes.
The bubbles.
I mean, there's so many things to do there. You can make slime.
Slime. We made slime. We played a lot in the water.
Yes.
We did a lot of that.
Now, do they have a water room? I know that they've changed things pretty dramatically, and we're going to be able to ask Micaela all about it.
They do. They actually, the greatest thing that's new at Impression 5 is they have a special room for younger children. Oh. So they have a room where it's very safe for younger children to go. I think it's under the age of 5, but she'll explain that to us. And you actually have a water room, water element in there as well.
That's great. So, I can't wait to hear all about it.
A lot of fun.
So what else were some of your, the traditions, the routines of getting your children back to school?
Well, for some reason in my house, everybody had to have a new backpack, which just killed me because I said, why doesn't your backpack from last year work for this year?
I mean,
and
that's ridiculous. You have to have a new one.
You have to have a new one.
That's part of it. That's the part that is so much fun.
Right. So those 5 backpacks could really set us
Well, you know what? I bet you have a whole room of backpacks now.
We have a whole room of backpacks. We've donated some of them.
Of course you have, which is a good thing to do.
Yeah, but it was always a lot of fun, but a lot of work in our family. And
was it like there was a day and you're like, okay, this is how we're going to do this. We're taking the girls, the boys, we're going out, we're getting clothes, backpacks.
It actually took us weeks because we have all these, I don't know if I mentioned, we have all these children, too many of them.
Too many children.
So I have twin sons, so I take the twin sons, and I would take the daughter out separate because she takes, of course, a lot longer.
Yes, there's a lot more shopping going on.
A lot more shopping, and we would get that all wrapped up. And
when did the twins stop wearing the same types of clothes?
About the first year.
They said no?
No.
Or you said no?
First year, we said no. I think they said no. So.
That's funny.
But yeah, a lot of work, but I think a lot of moms are so organized these days and have most of it done by now.
It's true. Well, we're going to talk about back to school for the rest of the show. We'll be chatting with Micaela Balzer from Impression 5 and Elizabeth Weston over at EC3. So I want you to stick with us. There'll be a lot more. In Her Shoes will return right after these messages. Welcome back to In Her Shoes. We are talking back to school today, and we're going to be chatting with Micaela Balzer from Impression 5 Science Museum here in the Lansing area. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for the invite. Very excited to be here.
So I always think about taking the kids to a science museum or to Impression 5 in the summer months. But what you say is that you can come all year long.
Absolutely. It's very, very important, I think, for kids to be able to visit museums or go to libraries or do things like this year-round, because it allows them to connect to the things that they're learning in the school with experiences. We want kids to be able to play with science and challenge their understanding, be able to create it and manipulate it. And so if they're learning vocabulary words about science concepts in the classroom, then they're able to apply them at a science center. If they're, listening to an experiment or watching an experiment or reading it in their books, then they're able to make it come alive and be able to manipulate it, and that just enhances their learning for sure.
And not only are they learning, but it's really fun. I mean, my granddaughter literally cried as I was bringing her out. And I had to fight with her to get her back in the car.
But, it's funny. We secretly love when we hear children cry leaving the science center. We were kind of sad by it too, but at the same time, we're like, yes,
it's all right.
They had a good time. They don't want to leave. And you're right. I mean, learning is supposed to be fun, and learning is supposed to be very engaging, and it's supposed to involve all their senses and make it an environment that's great for them to want to be there. And I think you're right. The museum does provide an opportunity for that, where they're very hands-on, they love it, and they're just having such a good time. And they don't even realize sometimes that they're learning. They're just collecting these experiences. And then they're like, oh, wait, that makes sense, or I can apply it this way. And I think that's the best part of our job.
Now, you're the education director. Now, how did you end up getting into a role like that at the Science Center?
It was actually by mistake, to be honest with you. It wasn't just,
a happy mistake.
That's the way good things happen.
Exactly. I really always loved math, and I really thought I was going to be an engineer, and I was really excited about that. But as I got around working at the Science Center, I realized I was very passionate about kids. And more than that, I was really passionate about what they were learning about. And so I changed my major to education. I was very excited to do so, even though everyone in my family thought I was nuts. They were like, what are you doing? This is incredible.
Oh, those families. Always trying to get into that.
Exactly. So I decided to do it. I was very excited to do it. And then I started working at the museum in the sense of where I was teaching. And it's funny how formal education, like classroom education and those types of things, and informal education, like museums, actually do go back and forth, and they play a very important role with each other. And so for me, just starting that track, learning about education in general, learning about how learners learn, and then being able to practice it at the museum was fantastic.
That is great.
Now, Micaela, one of the things that really impresses me about Impression 5 are the staff people that are there, because they're so engaged with the kids. We had one of your staff people doing the bubbles over and over again with my granddaughter, and he was just, wherever she was, he was, and he was walking her through everything. It was just wonderful.
We are very, very lucky to have the staff that we do.
Right.
All of them are super passionate about being at Impression 5, which is very important. Also making sure that they're having fun, which is great. I mean, who doesn't want to go to work and have fun? And so I do, for sure. And so the fact that they are in an environment that is very social, where they can engage with other children, even adults, the opportunity to be able to play with science. I mean, that's great. So I can't say enough about the staff that is there, whether they're volunteers or actual paid staff that are there at the Science Center. They're just incredible human beings for sure.
So someone can volunteer? I mean, I can see Lisa running the bubble machine.
Oh, absolutely.
I really can.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah, we would love to have you. Yes, we actually just recently opened up our volunteer program here at the Science Center, and we're accepting permanent volunteers that can, if they could just do 4 hours a week. That's perfect enough for us.
You're not marketing it that way, right?
No.
Permanent volunteers?
Permanent, forever. No.
You get stamped and then you're in forever.
Forever. We really do want people that want to be there for long term, at least a year or 6 months, so that they're training and they get to build on their skills. And, once you learn how to make a bubble, we want to be able to keep you.
That's great. Well, we're going to have Micaela back in the next segment, so stay tuned to In Her Shoes, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to In Her Shoes. We are talking back to school, and we've got Micaela Balzer from Impression 5 Science Museum right here in the Lansing area. It's actually just, it's a jewel. It really is. It's one of the most wonderful places to go. I've been there multiple times. My kids are getting a little older, but when they were kids, we went there all the time, and we were just talking about how Lisa is taking her grandchildren there now, which is amazing. So we know that you're the education director. How do you decide what type of exhibits that you are going to have out there? And do they kind of run a course? Do you change them out? How does all that work inside the museum?
Well, inside the museum, for sure, I think it's very important for exhibits to continuously change. So they're starting on a plan of a 5-year plan for museums.
Okay.
We technically at this point have a 3-year plan for like what's coming up next, what we're going to be developing, what visitors are going to be able to see. But it is very important for those exhibits to be new. As kids grow up, they definitely want to see their favorites, but they also want to make sure that they are seeing something new.
I bet that you see a lot of people who are like, well, where is that? I was here 3 years ago and I loved it and I was hoping to see it again. So you get a little complaint box for the small children who can say, I really want to see that again.
Yeah, it's really funny, especially adults, to be honest with you. The children seem to be more adept to things that change. Adults are like, wait a minute, last time I visited, I did this, and where is that exactly?
I was here when I was 6.
Exactly.
Now I have a 6-year-old.
And so because of that, we're looking to change up. So in the past year, we opened up the First Impression Room, which is a room for birth to 4-year-old. We opened up the My Nature area.
Yeah,
very nice.
I said 5, but
yeah,
four,
that's great.
Yeah, and then we opened up the My Nature room. We also opened up Build Zone. And to be honest with you, in the next couple of months, we're moving the bubble room. The very, very popular bubble room is going to get enhanced.
Oh, it's not going away.
No,
it's not going away. Don't send cards and letters.
You're going to get a letter from me.
Exactly. Everybody wants to be inside the big bubble. It will still be there. But it is moving. It is being enhanced. A couple other additional activities will be added. It's getting a new look to it. And so we're very excited about that. And then, as we look to the future of our exhibits, we're looking at the exhibits that are currently there and how we can change them up. The light and color room has my favorite exhibit in it, which is the shadow wall, where you capture your shadow on the wall.
Ooh, I'm going to have to go there and try that.
It's super cool, and you should see the kids when they're trying to do like the Michael Jordan stance, or they're doing a variety of different things there. But that room, of course, as you can imagine, has gone through its time. And as we're looking into the future, what else could we do? Technology is an amazing thing, and you can also include it into exhibits now to do amazing things. So a giant light bright, or those types of things are things that we're looking to do.
Oh, I was really good at light bright.
Like right from the 80s.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And so it's nostalgic, but also pretty sweet.
Yes, absolutely. So what age ranges are the best, for, I mean, you were just saying the little ones to 4, but what are the other ages that really make sense to make sure that they get out there?
We really do think it's a place for families, so multi-age learners. So even if you have a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old, it's a great place for you to visit.
Should I wrestle my 15-year-old down and take him?
They might like it. They might really like it. Adults
right.
are still having a great time at the Science Center.
I think that there's that age range where it's like if you bring them back.
Cool.
You've met him.
I will admit straight up that I learned a lot when I was there with my granddaughter. Things that I thought I knew, I didn't really know.
Yeah.
So the
way, didn't remember.
Or I didn't remember, or it was just written in such a way that it appealed to me.
Right.
But actually, I learned a lot. So I think you're right. Adults can go and really have a great experience.
Yeah. It's funny because we believe that we're ageless. That as long as you're willing to experiment with science, you're willing to challenge your understanding of it, that you're really going to have a great time at the Science Center. But there is a cool factor. At some point when you have a 15-year-old standing next to a 7-year-old, they're like, wait a minute, I'm too cool for this. But, we do see even, college students on dates coming to the Science Center, and they're ready to have a good time. So it really is ageless.
Now, can they have events there? Because I could see taking my kids there making slime.
Right.
Absolutely. We definitely have birthday parties and lots of different types of events.
Great. So what's the website real quick?
It is impression5 and 5's the number.org.
Great. We sent Thomas out. He actually took some footage. We'll be checking that out when we return to In Her Shoes. Welcome back to In Her Shoes. We sent out Thomas Shaver to Impression 5 to capture some of the great exhibits going on there. Check out this footage.
Hi, this is Thomas. Right now I'm outside of Impression 5 in downtown Lansing. Let's have a look inside.
In Her Shoes will return right after these messages. Welcome back to In Her Shoes. We've been talking back to school, and someone who knows a lot about getting back to school is Elizabeth Weston from EC3. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
So are you like geared up, ready to go, get those kids back at it?
We're getting there.
Yeah.
We don't actually stop having children in the summer, and so we
could I send my 15-year-old?
Well, you could. Summer camp program is just finishing up.
Nice,
but so yeah, it's a very busy time for us. We're getting ready for the new families to be coming in and sending the other children who are going to kindergarten off. So it's a busy time.
So what does EC3 stand for?
Educational Child Care Center.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about that.
EC3 has been around since 1984. It was actually one of the Lansing area's first educational child care centers. Back 28 years ago, they didn't have centers that they do today. There were child care or daycare places and homes where that were more just babysitting. But there were a group of people from the Michigan Department of Education and from the Lansing School District, educators, who thought they wanted their children to get an education from a young age. Yes, and so they actually put together an organization that was a joint venture between the MDE and the Lansing schools. And EC3 was fit the bill.
All right, that's great.
But your background's really not in that.
No, my background isn't in education at all. I actually have a business background, but I came to EC3 because I was a parent there. So 10 years ago when my daughter was barely one, I was looking for childcare, and I found out about it from a bunch of people who worked for the state who recommended it. I'd never heard of it. I was one of those mothers who didn't look into childcare until my baby was born.
Sure. I mean,
So-
why would you? You know what? I think it's great, though, because I think part of the issue, and we don't need to get into the debate over education because we don't have time for that, but I think that, you know, unfortunately what happens is we aren't treating education like a business, and in fact, whenever you have, you know, money coming in and money going out, you need to think about how it works as a business because it costs money.
That's absolutely
to
right.
educate.
That's absolutely right. And one of the things that when I was there as a parent, I joined the board of directors and got to see sort of the background, the educational and business background. And oftentimes it is educators who are running places like schools and nonprofits such as mine, very good, sharp people.
Absolutely.
But if they don't have that business training, then sometimes things can go awry. So when an opportunity came, and I still had some friends who were there and suggested I might look into being executive director, I said, why not? So.
Well, lucky for Lansing.
Right.
Thank you.
And can anyone come and sign up?
Absolutely.
Or do you have openings right now?
EC3 is a nonprofit, and we are a private nonprofit. We're open to all as enrollment as we have capacity. Right now, our infant program is pretty full, and our toddler program is pretty full, but we have room in our preschool program, and so anyone, kids ages 3 to 5, we're the place to go.
So what are your age ranges? Is that up till 5?
Yep, up until 5. So, and then in the summertime, we have a summer camp program for children ages 6 through 12. So I guess your son might be a little old, but he can volunteer.
Oh, you know what? That would be great.
Send him over.
You know, a little extra time, get him out of the house, put all his energy to good work. Yeah, that's great. So how many kids do you usually have? Where is the facility located?
We are in the old Main Street school building. So we are located on Main Street about 4 blocks west of MLK, really close to downtown. And we have a capacity for 140 children on any given day. We have some part-timers, some full-timers. Usually our enrollment the past couple of years has been up around 120, 130. It's been really good.
That's great. So do you hire certified teachers?
They don't need to be certified. The state of Michigan doesn't do they do a ZA endorsement, which is for early childhood. We try to hire people who have a bachelor's or an associate's degree in early childhood education. LCC has a wonderful program, and we get a lot of people from there.
What do you think the difference is between what you're doing and what's maybe some other people are doing? Obviously, there's a, you know, you made that decision because you felt there was some real quality there. What do you think the difference is?
Elizabeth, I'm going to have you hold on that note and save it for our next segment. You've been watching In Her Shoes. We are going to return in just a moment and hear the answer to that riveting question.
About the thing.
How about you do this?
Henry, are you going to dance with Carolina? Go get Carolina.
Welcome back to In Her Shoes. We're talking back to school, and right now we have Elizabeth Weston. She is with EC3. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure.
So before we went to break, Lisa had a question for Elizabeth.
I did. I was wondering what the difference is between your program and others, because obviously, you know, you went there because, you know, you were looking for something and searching for something, and there's an obvious difference in what's going on there.
Sure. One of the things that I was looking for and that a lot of parents are looking for is a center experience. There are plenty of really good home-based childcare for people who want a home-based experience, but I wanted my daughter to have a center-based school sort of...
more structure?
A little bit. I thought there'd be a little bit more structure. What I learned, interestingly, is that even though it follows all the educational principles, there's a curriculum, we follow all the different domains of development, everything is delivered through play. It's play-based education, so it looks like they're having fun. And this is how we trick young children into liking school. But so it really is tracking those domains of development from the earliest stages. We have lesson plans in our infant rooms. And so even though it looks like the things that we're doing are simple things, there's actually some intent there. And the quality of the teaching staff, too, always has been outstanding. And so that was another thing that I think sets us apart.
That's really great. So how is the process? If somebody's thinking about, potentially coming over, checking it out, how do you get involved? Is it a long process? Do you interview the kids? Are there testing? I mean, how does that work?
Those are good questions. No, it's, if a family decides they want to enroll at EC3 or at any early childhood center, they usually are, it's kind of like getting involved in a school. So there are parent handbooks and policies and so forth. The children are enrolled, and it's a tuition-based fee is how we do our operations. And the children don't have testing, but they do have parent-teacher conferences where parents are given information about their child's progress and so forth.
And I'm sure you have a website that people can get some detail.
We do. It is ec3kids.org.
Well, that's easy enough, isn't it? Right. You had a question?
And every study you're seeing is saying the earlier the better. Get them in early childhood education from the start, and it pays off in the long run.
Absolutely. The brain research has shown that the first 5 years of life are critical, and so getting the exposure to early literacy, early math at those ages, even infancy, is very important.
Well, they say you learn everything you need to know by kindergarten. So you're really
I've forgotten a lot.
Well, I want to talk to you about that on the break. But no, I think that's true. Though there's so much that you really do learn in those first few years, and sharing. So important. Some people never get that.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So is there an event that you have where people can come out and check out the facility?
We are going to actually be hosting a community conversation on September 20th.
Okay.
And this will be something that we're trying to get both our parents and community members to come and talk about education issues. So that'll be something at the center we'll have.
That's great. So you can go to ec3kids.org and check out the website. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being with us today. You've been watching In Her Shoes. Stay tuned. We're gonna take a look at EC3 when we return. Welcome back to In Her Shoes. We've been talking back to school. We had a conversation with Elizabeth Weston from EC3. Stay tuned and check out the footage that we took while over there.
I'll hold Pete right here. Don't worry about a thing.
How about you do this?
Henry, are you gonna dance with Carolina? Go get Carolina.
Right here.
I say don't worry. Yeah, you can dance with him about a thing.
About a thing. Do you want to hear?
And after a little bit, it's gonna be alright.
We might see her on the commercials every day, no worries.
About a thing.
Oh, look at that.
can't see this wrestler though. It was John Cena.
Carter, are you playing the guitar with Timmy?
Yeah, Carter. He's
Ooh, and Izzy too?
Oh, don't do it.
Be careful.
Don't worry
You don't want to hurt your fingers.
about
Boom, boom, boom. Ready? What else should we sing? What should we sing? Choo-choo? Papa, get ready with the choo-choo. Uh-oh. Here comes the choo-choo train, jogging down the tracks. First it goes forward, then it goes back. Ring your bell. Ding, 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 ding. Ring your whistle. Choo, choo. What a good make everywhere it goes. Choo.
In Her Shoes will return right after these messages. Welcome back to In Her Shoes. As always, we have Financial Facts sponsored by our good friends at MSU FCU. Listen to April Clovis and I chat about some great tips. Financial Facts is sponsored by MSU Federal Credit Union. Welcome to Financial Facts, sponsored by our good friends at MSU FCU. This is April Clovis. She is the COO over there, taking care of all things financial related. Hopefully. Yes. Today we're going to talk a little bit about part-time jobs for kids, and when is a good time to encourage your child to maybe get a part-time job?
Well, it really varies by each family. So I know that I started babysitting at 13, and now I look at my friends' kids at 13 and I'm like, wow, leave them with their children. But the reality is, it's a discussion you need to have about why do you or your child want a part-time job? Do they want, responsibility? Do they want money?
Right.
And then it is, how many hours should your child be working, and balancing it with schoolwork, and then
and sometimes sports.
Exactly. I know some of my friends' kids, they couldn't have a job because of their sports schedule. And then also legally, if you're going to, babysitting is, one thing, but then if you're going to work for an employer, the type of organization that you work for might have age restrictions. So, like for example, at the credit union, you couldn't work here till you're 18. Because we have
financial institution.
Yes, exactly. But other places will take a part-time job, and it really is based upon hours and following the labor laws.
I tried to get my son a job when he was 7, but there are laws. There are laws against that.
Absolutely. So really, it's knowing your child, knowing what they can handle and how many hours they can work, and what their schedule would be like.
That's great. You've been watching Financial Facts, sponsored by our good friends at MSU FCU. Welcome back to In Her Shoes. We've been talking back to school. Thanks so much for being here, Lisa.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
So, did you learn anything about sending kids back to school?
I did. I learned I need to start preparing, I guess. You prepare earlier? I guess that's the thing.
You know what? I think, yeah.
Understand all the resources that are out there. There's a lot more than I thought.
Yes, and of course, Impression 5 isn't just for summer. Which is when I took my kids over the summer many times. So it's kind of one of those things where you're trying to put a little education in their summertime so that they don't lose everything, you can go all year.
All year.
And they're always thinking about, and you always think, or at least I always thought, that it was a little bit like, you had the same things over and over and over again.
Well, it's really changed, and we learned that, that they've got a lot of improvements at Impression 5, and they're always turning things over. So if you experience Impression 5 at one point, it's not the Impression 5 that you experienced. So go and check it out.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting what we heard from Elizabeth Weston about EC3. I think that any time that you can spend, time in an educational setting, even as a small, very small child. I mean, it was surprising to hear that they have educational plans for infants.
Right, and I wish I had had an EC3 when my kids were all growing up. And for the younger moms out there, certainly something I would highly encourage.
I mean, I think it's great, and I think that it's one of those things where, there's never a one-size-fits-all scenario. And so some people would really love to have the, the informal setting for their children, and then there's, maybe a little more structured settings, and then, something in between, like maybe an EC3.
And this gives people a great option for downtown.
Yes.
Who are working downtown.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So many people.
Absolutely.
No, it's great. And I'm excited. I'm ready for my son to go back to school. I mean, he's going to be a sophomore, and it's very different than having the young ones, but I think that, for me, it's going to make life a lot easier.
Absolutely. I have mine going back to college, so usually I'm just writing checks now.
Right. It's a lot easier. Here's the check for books. Here's the check for clothes, tuition. Do you pay for food and all those types of things too, or do they work?
They have to work.
Okay.
My kids have to work.
That's good.
But, it still gets expensive.
Well, I want to thank our guests, Micaela Balzer from Impression 5, Elizabeth Weston from EC3, and as always, our friends at MSU FCU. And thank you so much, Lisa, for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It was really a lot.
You've been watching In Her Shoes. Stay tuned next week.
Go to In Her Shoes Television and like us on Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter at In Her Shoes TV.
Don't forget to visit the In Her Shoes webpage at inhershoestv.com.
Come and take a walk in her shoes.